Development cooperation is being challenged. People question whether development works. There are people in the development community who have a rich experience that provides answers to the critical questions that society raises. But their knowledge is tacit. It is only available to themselves and perhaps a narrow circle of their colleagues. Knowledge must be accessible. It is our responsibility as development practitioners to tell the story of our work. With me is Dr. Duncan Green, who is a Senior Strategic Advisor for Oxfam and Professor in Practice in International Development at the London School of Economics. He is author of How Change Happens and From Poverty to Power. And most importantly, he is an avid blogger. Zenebe Uraguchi, who is Program Manager of the Regional Program RECONOMY and a practitioner of knowledge management, learning, and communication. He is a development economist with multi-country experience in Asia, North America, Eastern Europe, and Africa. He is the author of a blog on inclusive systems. And Masha Scholl, who is responsible for global communications and regional communications in Eastern Europe. She has been working as a communication coordinator for environmental and development organizations since 2005. Duncan, why should a development practitioner blog about their work? Or what made you decide to blog? What was the driving force behind?
I'll take the second question first. So I stumbled upon blogging by accident. I published a book back in 2008 called From Poverty to Power, and we set up a blog to just promote the book called with the same name. And then it rapidly, I realized that this was what I've been looking for all these years. It's a way of writing on a much more casual way, more direct interaction. You get feedback and you get more readers than you do with books, I'm sad to say. So it was kind of a accidental discovery, which Oxfam, to its credit, was willing to let me run with. So yeah, they also saw that this was working in terms of audience and feedback, and so I went to blogging 5 times a week. I mean, every day, every working day, which can be a bit of a strain, but that way you build up an audience, and I just started to really enjoy the style. It's much more relaxed and casual than writing pompous academic papers and that kind of thing. In terms of why you should blog, I think there's instrumental reasons and personal reasons. So instrumentally, if you've got something to say, if you've written a paper or a book, or if you just have an idea, or even just a good graph, blogging is a great way to get it out into the social media stream, and it then gets picked up on Twitter or Instagram or whatever else. So yeah, the research from the World Bank says that blogging about a paper massively increases the downloads and citations, right? And there's some blogs, the really well-known ones like Freakonomics, where if you get one mention on that, it's equivalent to 3 years of abstracts and citations. Yeah, it's extraordinary. It can really increase pickup. So that's the instrumental part. But the personal part is it's a lot of fun, right? I mean, so if you like writing, if you like communicating, it's a more disintermediate, it's a more direct way of talking to people. You can test out ideas, get feedback, see what people are interested in, what people think is rubbish. You can consult the hive mind, you can get rapid advice from people who know more about a subject than you do. It's a very good way to hone your narrative, your elevator pitch. So if you've got a particular thing which you're working on, you can test out. It's a bit like giving PowerPoints, actually, same sort of thing, that it helps you test, sharpen up your narrative. It's good for networking and profile if you're thinking about careers. I like the way it makes you think harder. So if you're reading something and you're going to blog about it, you have to go all the way to, this is what I think about this paper or this conversation. if you aren't going to blog about it, it's very easy to just drop off just before the end and say, okay, I've read that, I've got the idea. And then nothing sticks. But if you know you've got to review that book, then you really think harder about the book. Finally, you get free copies of books, review copies, which is always a big plus because they cost a lot.
Could you explain how should one blog about their work?
I do a kind of standard presentation because a few people come and ask for advice on blogging. And I think one of the things is you have to unlearn what they taught you in university, right? So you have to unlearn that particular way of writing, which universities teach you. And you have to learn to write like you talk. And that is actually really hard for people. I always assumed that people would find that easy, but actually people find that really traumatic at first. So to write in that casual conversational way. Don't take too long. People who take a day over a blog, the blog is usually really boring. People who dash something off in an hour or half an hour and then polish it, much better. So I've got, you know, I do a standard presentation on 10 ways to write a blog in under an hour. Like a PowerPoint is basically a blog, right? I mean, it's the same number of words, same purpose, same, you know, getting a narrative through. An interesting conversation is a blog. Something you read which you just want to summarize and spin and say, this is why I think this is interesting, that's a blog. So don't make it too difficult for yourself. You know, enjoy it and find easy ways to blog.
What is blogging all about, Zenebe? What are some of the reasons why development practitioners should blog even if they are not writers?
Okay, you have two questions in one, Sabine, there. First, what is blogging? And second, why development practitioners should blog. Blogging for me is a diary or conversational story that contains, you know, regularly updated content about one or multiple topics. The term is short for weblog, which means to log information on a website, which eventually becomes like kind of a blog. Blogs emerged from online diaries or writings in the mid-90s. At that time, internet users were already running personal web pages where they published, you know, regular updates about their personal lives, thoughts, and social commentary. Now we have not only, you know, written stories, we have also vlogs. You do the inclusive plug vlogging in the form of, you know, short videos, podcasts in the form of digital audio files, and so on. The point here is one doesn't need to write, but to also come up with stories in the form of videos or audios, even drawings and pictures to tell stories. So coming to your second question about the reason for blogging by development practitioners or others, I see three kind of broader reasons for or explanations. The first one is it's personal. This may include, for example, expressing oneself or sharing passions or knowledge. It can also be refining writing skills or building a professional network and earning, you know, more exposure in terms of job opportunities, for example. So that's the first reason. The second reason is economical. Blogging is becoming more commercially organized as specialist companies and individuals are increasingly investing in ways to commercialize their writing. Some may argue that the golden age of blogging has passed. This partially was due to endless choices of social media networks, quick video apps, and the continuing, you know, attention loss. Yet I still believe that there is a reasonable economic benefits gained from blogging or vlogging. The third reason is this instrumental angle, going beyond the personal and economic reasons, which I have just mentioned earlier. What does this mean? You have organizations and individuals committed to a social cause or value, and they seek to use blogging or vlogging to reach out to their audience. A good example is brand ambassadorship that many non-governmental organizations are increasingly using. So in this sense, I invite people to check out the Inclusive Plug episode number 10 on the same subject, where I had a conversation with two of my colleagues about this topic. So I would say that these are the main kind of three reasons why development practitioners or others blog or vlog.
What made you decide to blog? Is it about the style, which is much more relaxed and not like writing pompous academic papers?
A very good question, Sabine. To answer this question, I go back to your first question, why people or development practitioners blog, and then link my response to this question. I blog for two reasons. One is personal, and another one is institutional. Personally, blogging is fun, but it's not easy. It's hard. I blog because it's a chance for me to share my personal lessons, ideas with others. I blog because it's the most effective form of communication and publication, if I'm not exaggerating. Of course, I don't consider myself, nor do I really consider myself as a blogger. I just see myself as a curious individual, and I like to share what I have learned. When I document, I also reflect. I think the same applies to others. If we can write what we have in our mind, we know that we understand it. Internal reflection is a great side benefit of writing, and hence I blog and I write things. At the institutional level, there are a number of people in the development community, including like in Helvetas, who have rich experience that can provide answers to a number of critical questions that society faces. But the challenge is the knowledge is tacit, that it's in our mind, it's not documented, it's not accessible. So it is just available to themselves, and perhaps a narrow circle of colleagues or very few individuals have access to that kind of knowledge. Therefore, I think as part of an institution like Helvetas, knowledge must be accessible, and it's our responsibility to tell the story of our work. And then blogging is, I think, one of the most interesting and effective way of communicating. What I have learned is that we should start at the small manageable level. Start with one paragraph, slip over it, then rewrite it, write the next one. Someday, maybe we will have a great text. But what I would like to emphasize here is blogging is not only about writing paragraphs after paragraphs. You can also have a chat with a colleague or a partner on a topic that we might find exciting. We can record it on our phone and edit it a little bit, and then just your blog post is ready. So in this sense, my favorite book is by William Zenser on writing well. He says that writing is difficult, writing is lonely, writing is boring. He doesn't want to build wrong expectations. For that, he proposes 4 key principles that I would like to emphasize: clarity, simplicity, brevity, and humanity. Humanity meaning writing is a human expression. And then indeed, I mean, to translate these principles into something practical is easier said than done. But the advice that William Zinsser gives us is that the key to writing very well is rewriting. So I think these are the key points that I would like to emphasize in responding to your question.
If a development practitioner wants to blog, what should be their first step, Masha?
When we write a blog post, we always start by thinking about the topic. But here the question is whether we choose the topic from our own perspective or from the reader's perspective. Of course, if you're writing a post just for a narrow circle of your colleagues and partners, then it's probably what interests you also interests them. But if you write a blog post about your project that you're really proud of, it might not be interesting to people who have never heard about your project, are not involved in it, and don't have a reason to be proud of it. So if you're aiming for a wider audience of development professionals, and even more so if you're aiming for the broad public, then you should think about what interests them, what needs could you meet with your blog post. And when it comes to blog posts, I would say that there are two most common needs that it can meet. One most straightforward one is the need to solve a problem, for example, a work problem. Let's say a lot of development professionals who strive to achieve systemic change in their projects, they have a problem reporting these results, measuring these results for the donor. For example, instead of trying to give access to education to a specific number of young people, they try to change the whole educational system, and they don't know how to measure that result, how to reflect their effort. And then you have an idea for a solution from your project. And you can write a blog post about that solution using your project as an example. But the topic is not your project. The topic is the solution that can help a lot of development professionals. Another need that you can meet with your blog post is curiosity. It might not give a specific solution to a development professional, but curiosity is such a strong drive behind all human development that each one of us will be immediately interested if we see information that is novel, unusual. Just spark the reader's curiosity with something that is really exciting and new to them, especially if it is related to their work. But then it's important to actually start with that information to spark their curiosity so that they continue to read on.
What other mistakes do development practitioners typically make when starting to blog?
One most common one that I've encountered is trying to write about everything in the blog post. So let's say you chose a topic that satisfies a specific need. For example, you write a blog post about interesting data that your climate change project collected. And that data can be useful to all development professionals, especially those who work in climate change. But then the author tries to write, for example, to prove in his post that addressing climate change is important. But probably your target audience, other development professionals, more than 95% of them already agree with you that climate change is important. So you're just stating the obvious, and this makes your blog post boring because there are already millions of resources saying exactly the same thing. You're preaching to the choir. And often I get asked, how long should be the blog post? And I would say that there is no length requirements. There are no length requirements. The important thing is that you keep the reader's interest. And of course, it's more difficult to keep the reader's interest for a long time. But if you have, as long as you have interesting novel information, keep writing. I doubt that most writers would have enough interesting information to keep the reader's attention for half an hour. But if you do, then go ahead. But don't include information that is already obvious to the reader, that is not, just include those exciting, novel, relevant things in the blog post. It's not a book, it's not a research paper. The important thing is not to describe everything, but only tell the new novel, innovative things that you're writing about. And it's especially important to start with these things because if you lose the reader in the first paragraph, obviously they will not read the blog post to the end.
Some of the questions we explored in this episode are: why should a developer and practitioner invest their time in writing, and how to write well? Well, thank you for watching another round of Inclusive Blog powered by RECONOMY. This was Sabine, a communication manager at RECONOMY, a program of the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, implemented by Helvetas in 12 countries in Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and the Western Balkans. Thank you for tuning in, and see you soon.